Hey guys, Mike from School of Rock, Rockville Center, Huntington, and Syosset Oyster Bay here. Today we're going to be talking about how to change the strings on your electric guitar. It's a little bit different for acoustic, we'll do that another day, but today we're going to talk about the electric guitar. So, first of all, going to need strings. The question that I usually get is what size strings? Well, you've got three main size strings for electric guitar. You've got 9s, you've got 10s, and you've got 11s. 99.9999% of electric guitars are going to come from the factory with 10 gauge strings, and that's what we're going to use here today. Basically, that number refers to the thickness of the string. So the higher the number, the thicker the string. On smaller guitars, sometimes they use 9s. Jimmy Page, I think, used 9s. Not sure about that. He might have used 8s. Not sure. Anyway, 10s are the normal. 11s are good for jazz or if you're tuning down. So if you're going to go to drop D or something like that, play a half step lower, 11s are good for that. But we're going to use 10s. I recommend you use 10s. Do whatever you want. I also prefer Elixir strings because they're coated. Basically, they just last a little bit longer. A bit more expensive, but if you change your strings half as often, it's worth it. Let's keep on going. We've got a string winder. Not necessary, but it makes your life easier. We've also got a set of wire cutters. We have guitar polish, lemon oil, and woodwind boar oil. Talk about this a little bit later. Basically, they're the same thing. I just have both in case you happen to have one of two in your house somewhere. This is the stuff that you can get at a music store, and they use it for flutes and things like that. This you can buy online, same thing. We've also got this here, which is a fret polishing kit, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And then this thing, which I promise is less sinister than it looks. So, let's get to it. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take the strings off. So now, the mistake that most people make is they cut the strings right in the middle. You don't want to do that right off the bat because what happens is the release of tension can actually screw up some of the things in your neck because all the wood is held together really, really tight, and then you just loosen all the tension and it shocks everything. So before we cut them, we're actually going to loosen the strings. Not all the way, just enough so that they sound like that. And again, you don't need a string winder to do this. You can do this with your hand. It just makes everything a little bit easier. So after you've loosened your strings, now we can get to cutting them. Usually cutting around the 12th fret is the easiest. It doesn't really make a difference. You can cut them wherever you want. Just make sure you don't accidentally drop string cutters and hit the guitar. Okay, so now that you've cut all your strings off, we have to take them out of the tuners. Usually got to wrap them around to do that. These have a tendency to get lost. Make sure you keep track of them. Now we have to take the strings out of the tailpiece. So on a Gibson style guitar, it's really, really easy because this whole tailpiece just comes right off. And don't worry if this falls off, it's supposed to. Now we're just gonna push the strings out like that. Okay, one thing to note here, super, super important, especially if you're working with a Gibson style guitar. So an SG, a 335, a Les Paul, anything like that, or anything that looks like that. So we've zoomed in here to show you something really, really important. One thing that you want to make sure that you do not touch as you do this, there are these little thumb wheels on either side of the bridge. If those move, what happens is the bridge moves up and down, and it could change the way that the guitar plays by changing how high the string is off of the fret. The height of the string off of the fret is called the action. So basically we don't want to move this. We want to make sure we're really, really, really careful not to touch these. This doesn't matter. You can leave this alone. Don't mess with it. These, don't touch. Another thing to note, this is a Gibson style guitar. Obviously this is a Fender style guitar. This is a Stratocaster. On a Gibson, your strings will be anchored via this tailpiece. On a Stratocaster, they're anchored back here. So just make sure you're not trying to pull the strings out up here. They won't come out. They'll come out the back. Also, when you have a whammy bar, this guitar is the kind that has a whammy bar. As you take the strings off, the position of the whammy bar is going to change. Usually what I like to do is I like to cram a towel just like this underneath here so that it doesn't make an impression into the body. You don't have to, just a recommendation. So the order of these steps is up to you, but I like to start by cleaning off my guitar because when everything is off of it, it's super, super easy. So we've got our guitar cleaner here. Just spray a little bit on there. And when you rub it in the first time, you want to make sure that you try to rub in straight lines, because if you have any dirt or anything on your guitar, if you rub in circles, you're actually just going to rub the dirt in and you might get little scratches. But if you want to keep your guitar looking brand new, kind of want to go in straight lines, at least just for the first pass. Okay, so once you've polished off your guitar, and don't worry if you get any fingerprints on it, obviously you can come back and do it later, the next thing that we have to focus on is the fretboard. Now this is the thing I always say. If you take the time and you set up your guitar right and you do all the stuff that I'm about to do, it's going to make playing your guitar 1,000 times easier. You won't feel like you have to fight it the whole time. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to moisturize the fretboard. Now, before we do that, on this Les Paul style guitar, this is a rosewood fretboard. So you can tell because it's brown. And if you feel it, it doesn't feel like there's paint on it. It's just raw wood. This is the kind of wood that you have to moisturize. If you have a Strat or a Tele or something with a maple board. So again, take a look at the difference. Rosewood is brown, maple looks like, it's like whitish. This you don't have to moisturize, you just have to clean. So this is a rosewood specific step. Now is where we use these two things. Again, this is lemon oil and this is woodwind boar oil. You can use either or. In this case, I'm going to use lemon oil, but again, it doesn't make a difference. So come in close, let's take a look. Shake this up, and you'll see as I put it on, you're going to see this wood just moisturize, and then it's going to start to seep in. Come in here and take a look at the difference between the first fret and the second fret. And you're going to just want to do this for all your frets. Here, I'll show you what it looks like if you use woodwind boar oil. Just take a drop like this, and you can put it on all your frets. It's actually even faster if you use this. And then what you do is you just take your finger and you get it in like that. First of all, this is going to make your guitar last a lot longer because in temperature changes, the wood's not going to crack. And number two, it just makes the guitar look fantastic. Okay, so once you've put your woodwind boar oil / lemon oil on your fretboard, you want to give it 2 to 3 minutes for the wood to just soak in all the moisture. And after you've done that, which we have done, now you can take a rag and just wipe off whatever's on top. It should still look a little wet after you do this, and it shouldn't be totally dry. That's normal. Okay, so once you've done that, this is the step that nobody likes. This step is optional, you don't have to do it, but if you want your guitar to play absolutely the best it can, I'd recommend you do this. There's a couple ways to do this. This is a fret polishing kit that I bought at Guitar Center. You could find them online. Basically, what I have this kit for is two things. Number one, I have this special polishing sauce. It's just like a compound that you put on your fret. And number two, because I have these markers, and I'll show you how these work in a second. So now we're going to get into polishing the frets. I won't show you all of them on camera because it's going to take me a while, and it's probably going to take you a while too, but I'll show you how to do the first couple. So we've taken our utensil here, which goes right on the fret, just like this. Now, if you don't have one of these, there's a cheap way to do this. You can go and you could buy 4-0 steel wool, and then you can use blue painter's tape, and you could gently tape off all the wood on your whole guitar, and you just use, not Brillo, specifically 4-0, it's called quadruple aught steel wool. You can use that to polish. Don't use Brillo. Okay, so we've got our marker here. Now we just put a dab of polishing compound at the end of a rag, and then you'll see, just like this, and we just go at it until the fret's completely clean. Now something to note about this. When polishing metal of any kind, you can polish it infinitely, and every single time you polish it, your rag's gonna come off looking like that. No matter how clean it looks, no matter how many times you do it, it will always come off completely black. You kinda just have to stop when you think it's ready. Usually I'll do 2 passes of the whole guitar, but even 1 is just fine. So again, put a little dab on the end, use your masking utensil, and just polish off the fret. Now let's take a look. I'll clean this one. Look how much shinier, hopefully it comes across on camera, the first one is from the second one. So the reason you want to polish your frets, number one, obviously it makes your guitar look great, makes it look brand new. Number two, when you're playing a bend, it's going to make the frets feel like glass. You won't have any sticking, you won't have anything feel like it's rubbing. Basically, it just makes the guitar play a lot easier, a lot better, and it makes your life easier. So it's worth it to take the time to go through and actually polish all the frets. Alright, so now that we've finished polishing our frets, we actually get to put the strings on. So I'm just cleaning up this tailpiece before I put it back on the guitar. Now we're going to zoom in close in just a second, and I'm going to show you exactly how you tie off your string. So basically, you put the string through, there's a certain amount of slack that you have to leave, and there's a certain way that you have to tie it around the post at the top. So let's come in close and you guys can take a look at that. Now you're going to want to pop open your new bag of strings. It's a box of strings, not a bag. What am I talking about? Alright. So we're going to start with our low E string. So that should be 46 if you have a 10 gauge. If you have a 9 or an 11, I'm not sure, but it should be the thickest one in the pack. So we're going to open it just like this. You see it comes in a circle. You just put your hands in and you shimmy them up and down, and then it should come apart. So we're going to take the tip of the string, put it through the hole, make sure we go over the bridge, keep on pulling through. Alright, so now here we are up at the headstock. We want to make sure that the hole on the side of the post is aligned with this slot on the nut. And we take the tip and we put it through. Not done just yet. Okay, so now we have to make sure that we leave enough slack. So what I like to do is I like to take my hand, I like to take 4 fingers, go up to the 12th fret right here, and I stick my whole hand just like this underneath. Now I make sure on this side that the string is not down here, it's on top and in the slot, and then here I make sure it's in. So what I like to do right now is just take this and kink it. So now, no matter what happens, my string is the correct length. You want a little bit of slack, but not too much. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our string winder, and just like this, as we wind, get this technique down. It took me a lot of years to figure this out. We wanna make sure, number one, excuse me. We wanna make sure, number one, that our string is in the slot, and number two, that our winds are correct. So the first one is gonna go on top. What do I mean? The string that comes out the back of this hole should go underneath the string that's in your hand only the first time. So I'll show you what that looks like in real close. Right? So we're spinning it around, I'm holding it. Now this string is gonna go underneath the one that I'm holding. Just like this. I'm gonna pull that through. Watch out, this will take your eye out. Be very careful. And now, the rest of them are gonna go underneath that string, and I'll explain why in a second. So now I'm pushing down as hard as I can, making sure every once in a while, hey, take a look. My string fell out of the slot. So we're gonna put it back in the slot, and we're just gonna keep on screwing it until we feel it tight. Don't bring it up to pitch yet, just until you feel it tighten up. Now, the reason that we go underneath with this the first time and then over, this is the way Gibson does it from the factory. The winds of the string hold the string in place within the tuner, and it makes your guitar stay in tune better. I know it sounds crazy, but I promise it's a real thing. So you wanna do that. Just check everything, make sure it's all in the right spot, and then you move on and do the rest of them. One more thing I should add, super, super, super important. The string is on the inside of the post, so they're being wrapped around this way. If you have done this yourself and you see that this string is on the other side of the post, you did it the wrong way. You gotta undo it and do it. These are gonna work backward now. And it's the same thing on this side. You wanna make sure that the string is on the inside and not the outside. See, I'm talking about this tight string that goes to the rest of it. You wanna make sure that it's on the inside of the tuner, not the outside. And that's true no matter what guitar you have. Let's take a look at this Stratocaster here. Let's zoom in on the headstock. You see the string is always on the inside, never on the outside, because then your tuners work backwards. So I've seen people make that mistake dozens and dozens and dozens of times, so just be really, really mindful of it. So one thing that I forgot to talk about, which, don't worry, I've gone back and done this, is this little syringe thing. So this is a lubricant. There's also a name brand version called Nut Sauce. I promise you, that's really what it's called. It's not a joke. But basically what it is, it's a lubricant for the nut of your guitar. So why is that important? Have you ever had it so that when you tune your guitar, you hear the string squeak back and forth? What's happening is that the string is binding within the nut slot. So it's just kind of getting stuck. This makes sure that doesn't happen. So again, makes bending smoother, makes the guitar easier to play, makes it stay in tune better, all those good things. Now, if you don't want to buy it, there is a cheapo way to make it. So just like we talked about the cheapo way to polish frets, there's a cheapo way to make this stuff. And it's graphite and Vaseline. So the stuff that comes out of a pencil and Vaseline, just going by. So you can get a big tub, you just take a little bit of Vaseline, you stick it in the slot. Actually, before you do that, you want to take a pencil and just draw in the slot, and then you put some Vaseline in it. And those two things together make a slippery enough combination to make sure that your string doesn't bind when you tune or bend or do any of those things. So now we're going to go ahead and put the rest of the strings on the guitar. This will probably be a time lapse. So now we're chopping the ends of our strings off. You don't have to do this, it just makes your life easier, and it also will hopefully make sure you don't get stuck in the eye with the end of the string. Again, I can't stress how sharp they are. You can really, really hurt yourself. Now, take a look. All three of my winds come on the inside, so now I cannot stress this enough. You wanna make sure that they're opposite on this side, so I'll show you what I mean. Let's take a look. So we've got our G string here. Get this out of the way. Oh no. Ah. That was the sound of me stubbing my toe. So we come through. This is where we put the nut sauce on. Sorry, I forgot about that before. So take a look. So we line up our hole. Same as before, but now take a look. We're going from the inside, the center of the headstock, to the out. You don't want to go this way, and when you turn it, you want to make sure that you turn it this way. This way, all your tuners work in the right direction, and you look like you know what you're doing. So again, 4 fingers, just like that. Just wanted to use this opportunity to remind you of the correct way to turn your strings. Number 1, double check that all the strings are in their proper nut slot, and also double check that the strings are in their proper bridge slot. So if you see them hanging off the side and your guitar doesn't play right, that's why. So just double check that real quick. And now is actually a really, really, really good time to do 2 things. Number 1, something we didn't do before, flip your guitar over, polish the back of the neck. It's a huge difference that this makes, because if you don't polish it, it kind of feels like you're playing through a bunch of grime. Again, all about making your guitar play easier, play better. That's the point of this. So a little bit of polish, just like that. Clean it up, make the guitar so much better to play. And finally, one more thing. So I haven't done this yet, but you'll do this at home. You want to bring the guitar up to pitch. So tune it, use a tuner. And what's going to happen is, you have to stretch out the strings because the guitar is just going to keep going out of tune. Basically, when you pull new strings out of the package, I promise this is a very real thing, you can Google it. All of the actual molecules of the metal of the string are not aligned. So as they get pulled tighter and tighter and tighter, they start to align. And as they align, the strings actually get longer. So what happens is, you put new strings on your guitar, you tune it, you play a G chord, it sounds great, you make one bend, you go back, play that same G chord, doesn't sound great anymore because it's not in tune. Your string's stretched. So, just like this, take 2 fingers and you just stretch. Now you don't stretch super hard because you will break the strings. You should feel them just kind of become a little bit more malleable in your hands though, as you go and do this. And again, do it for all 6 strings. After each time you stretch them, tune the guitar back up, play it a little bit, and then stretch them again. After 2-3 times, your guitar should probably be ready to go. Probably give it one more final clean just so it looks all nice and shiny, and you're good to go. That's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully this helped. Have a good one.